right, the plan is today, time permitting, we're going to go over chapter 9 until the break, then chapter 10 after the break. Thursday, we'll go over chapter 11. Then we're done with the second section of the book. We should be able to finish each one of those lectures, hopefully in an hour. We'll see. And if we're able to do that, either way, when you come in here on Thursday, when you come in here on Thursday, I'll have your next assignment. All right, so ideally, you'll get an hour Thursday and all next week to work on it. So all next week will be lab in here. All next week will be lab in Java. All right, and we're going to go back to the book again in PHP. You may or may not care, but just as a little teaser, as they say, for you. All right, I'm going to go over that stuff in just a second, but where is this? I must have shut it. But I wanted to show you something anyway, so I guess I have, yeah, good. I decided to do something different than what I told you. This will affect everybody in here, even you, Amanda, just so you know. But I built Joe's in PHP, all right, as opposed to the one I told you we're going to do, the future value, all right, just because this was more challenging and not really a whole hell of a lot to it. All right, 289, that is everything. If I come in here, parts charges are $100 and labor is 20 hours, and we calculate the charges at 789. That's all correct. All right. I'm still a little hinky on this. In the book, they asked you to do an exit here. I tried doing a clear. I tried doing a clear for them, and I tried doing it through both JavaScript, jQuery, and my own ways, and I can't get it to work the way I want it to work. I've been out doing Stack Overflows and stuff the last couple days, so it's not perfect, but it's could be worse. If I click clear form, right now nothing happens. So I'm gonna give you both hard and electronic copies of this today. And we're going to talk about that as a class this afternoon. So, all right. That said, let's jump back in. Chapter 9 is on master pages. If you're not aware of the concept, a master page basically is a template. What they provide in this chapter is they create a template, or a master page that looks like this. Forget this is even here for a second. It's got up here, this is in one content pane area, it's got literally header information, and down here in the other content panel area, it's got a simple menu. All right, and you'll notice then this is the actual content that you end up dragging in there, and this is actually technically right here, that's 2 pages. That's the master page that you see there. All right, and then you build the other page and you say that it's linked to the master page. Once you do that and you start building that other page, the only thing that you can actually edit on the other page is just this stuff. The only way that you can edit this or this is to go to what they saved in here as site.master. So it's its own file. Okay? And you'll see all that as we go in here. We're going to talk about that in chapter 9. Then in chapter 10 we talk about a concept that's, I guess it's a lot different. It's something that's called themes, and we get into themes and skins. All right. Now the author even says, the author recommends that you use master pages for every site that you develop. And the reason for that is that if you don't use master pages and later you decide you do want to use master pages, you're better off taking your old pages and basically just chucking them and starting over. You can go and copy stuff, from non-master pages to master pages. It doesn't work well because of all the behind-the-scenes files that get created for you when you do this. All right? And I've tried doing it both ways. I've gotten it to work by literally taking non-master pages and making the master pages. It's a pain. So they formally define here on page 295 a master page as a page that provides common elements for other pages in the site. All right? So as it says, the page that's actually sent to the browser is created by combining elements from both what's called the master page and the content pages. So far, we haven't had master pages, so essentially everything we've done has been a content page. When you go through the next assignment, you will be creating a master page. All right? as it says, the content page provides the content unique to each page in the application. All right. And the master page, as it says, it includes a content placeholder. And technically it holds 2 content placeholders. All right. We're going to see that as we go into it in just a minute. Now, one thing to realize, and I want to make sure you see this, okay? So if you'd all just look up here, I'll get rid of that for just a second. I've got this running so I could show it to you, but that's no biggie. I'll just stop the run, okay? But if I decide I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to right mouse click on the name of the project, I want to show you this 2 ways real quick. So if I go in and I right mouse click and I choose add and I choose new item, all right, and I do it the way we've been doing it in the past. So I go to web form and I go to placeholder and place it in a separate file, okay? So I go ahead and do that and I click add. All right, you know there's not much there. You all know that. And if I go to design view, that's literally what it looks like, right? That's what we've done so far. But on the other hand, if I right mouse click on here and I choose add and I choose add new item and again web form, but this time I say select master page like that and I click add, now it's going to ask me what master page I want to hook it up to. So I click site.master and I click OK. And you might say, well, it doesn't look very different. Well, notice how different it looks. So that's why you typically create master pages, so that you've got some kind of a template for each page in the site that you're going to create. Does that make sense? All right. And that's what this chapter really is about. I mean, I literally can run this page right now if I want to. All right. And I can go over here and just say set a start page, for example. And notice, even though there's not very much stuff in it, you know, it's just basically, it's the master page area itself, I can still move around from page to page. All right, I've got that built in. Okay, but if I go back and I stop the run here, and I bring up the other page, all right, and I view that in the browser, I actually think it's showing right now because there's nothing in it. So you see the difference. All right. And it gets, believe it or not, much more complex than that, because it's possible for you to even nest master pages. So for instance, what I could do is I could have a master page that had this in it. Then I could say, yeah, but every content page actually has this special little thing right here. So I could make another master page that was nested inside of the first one. And then I could have other things that would basically, they would inherit from the inner master page, which inherits from the outer master page. And before you say it, that doesn't make any sense. When you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Let's assume that they set up an ASP.NET site for Blackhawk Technical College. And they decided that every single page that you got to on the site would have the same banner on the top and the same thing along the sides like they have here. But then they were going to set it up so that each division could have their own page. So for instance, every single page that you had in the business division might have some kind of an extra header up here that says business division, where we had a master page for that was nested inside of the other master page. You understand what I'm saying? But after a while, every time that you add another master page, what you're doing is you're cutting down the area of your content page. All right, so sooner or later, if you keep adding master pages and you're not going to have any room to write anything else. Yes, it inherits from its parent, and the parent by default will inherit from its parent, which by default will inherit from its parent. You can do that too, but then it's going to involve some code. So a master page provides the framework. The pages that are displayed inside of them are called content pages. As it says, the content for each content displayed is displayed in one or more of the master page's content placeholders. And why is that important? You may or may not realize it, but going back again to over here, that if we come back to, for instance, let me see if I bring up order. I want the order. Bring it that one. All right, if I go over here to design mode and I come up to the toolbox, that someplace in here, not under there, but I think it's under standard. Maybe not. Well, under one of these, someplace, it could be navigation, it could be any place, but someplace in here, there actually is, there it is. you can put in your own placeholders. All right? So you can create your own placeholders inside of content placeholders if you want to do that. All right, so next is how to create a master page on pages 298 and 299. The key thing to realize when you do this is if you look up on the screen here, see that? It says master page, code file equal master page. In the past, we've never said that. In fact, if you look at the two that I added here, all right, if we look at both of these, and I bring up, this is the one, the default, the first default that we brought up. So if we bring that up and we look at the source, page language, code file equals default.aspx, etc. If we look at the one for the other one and we bring up the source, all right, master page file equals site.master. It has to know where it's inheriting from. All right, but the other one wasn't inheriting from anything, so you didn't see it. Okay. And if we bring up the actual stuff for the site.master, which is right here, all right, so if I bring that up and I look at it in source, all right, it says master. The other, previously we didn't see that. It's letting you know that that's a master page. And you can see the code file that's associated with it. All right. Now, if that doesn't make sense, hopefully it does, but if for some reason it doesn't, and I'm not trying to be funny here, read the chapter. Because I think the author does a pretty good job of explaining this. All right. So you'll notice that there's two of these content placeholders. The one that's in here is for everything that you'd want to appear in the head section. All right, so in other words, that's this. The one that's down here is everything that you want to appear in the body. All right, but it's going to be in the body of every page that inherits from this. So basically that's this. Does that make sense? And again, one of the things that we could have done is when I, again, come back in here and right mouse click and choose add and choose add new items, one of the things that's in there is master page. All right, so I can sit there and create a master page. All right. Now this is a little confusing. The author says that after doing this, this is what can happen. Even if you either you won't get it to work, or it'll look like this if you try to take non-master pages and turn them into master pages. All right, because that's kind of what he did here. You see the stuff is there and it's all correct, but it's kind of thrown all over the screen. Because what happens is when you go and you create these controls, when you create any kind of control, it's given an ID automatically for you. All right, but if you go and you move things in from non-master pages to master pages, what it does is it appends stuff on there. So where previously it might have been called something like, they give you an example here, DDL products. Under here, under the master page, it'll be called like form placeholder underscore DDL products. So in other words, there's more stuff that gets added to it because it's part of a form, which is part of a master page, is what the author's saying. And if you say that's confusing, again, look at the stuff that's here. If you start from the get-go and you create your master page right away, and you basically set it up the way you want, you're set. This stuff shouldn't be an issue, and that's what the author's saying. That's why the author recommends that a lot of times sites start out as just a page or two. Then it's 3 or 4. Then it's 10. Then it's more. Then it's like, hell, I wish I would have created, a master page at the beginning. So the author's saying that you really ought to do that from the start, even if you only have a page or two in there, because it's much easier than to add pages based off of that master page. All right, then he says how to create a content page. Well, the one thing to realize when you create this content page, you may or may not have realized it, you don't have the doc type and all that other stuff in there. There's only one doc type. That's in the master. You're not going to find it. So if I come back here and we go in and we look at the about, all right, and we go into the about right there, it says, well, there's not much in there, but notice what you see here. Notice what you don't see here. In fact, the best example I can give you, let's look at the two default pages. Here's the first one that I created all by itself. Notice doc type, head, etc., all the good stuff that we've been used to. Now look at the one that we created as part of the master page. all that stuff is gone because it's inheriting the doc type and everything from that master, and you'd want that. Because otherwise, the stuff that we put up in the head section, we have no way of inheriting it. Because you'd have another doc type within a doc type, and it would confuse the hell out of the system. Right? And John can tell you from what he's just looked at today, it's not hard in this software to confuse the hell out of the system. All right? Even if you do absolutely nothing wrong. All right, once you create that, though, when you add content, you add it like you would, any other page. That's what they're getting to. So they're coming in here and they're throwing in, a data source control or drop-down list, and they have a data source control hooked up to it here, some labels, a text box, some validation controls, and an image control. Same stuff we've had before, but now we're creating it inside of the master page. All right, and that's what the author's getting to. It says when you display a content page, the elements from the master page are displayed. But the thing to realize is this stuff that you see here, it doesn't show very well, but this stuff is basically grayed out. Not when you run it, but when you are in design mode. And it's grayed out because you can't change a master page from within a content page. Did everybody hear that? That's the key thing to keep in mind. You can't do that. It doesn't make any sense to the system. So again, when I come up here and I bring up this default 2, all right, and I look at it in design mode, you see what's all gray on there. That's the stuff that I have no control over. Notice when I put my mouse on it, what happens to the cursor. Notice the one thing that I can put the mouse in, how it changes. So everything else I have no access to. However, if I come down to Site Master and I decide in here I want to change something now, I can change anything I want. I can add additional options in here, additional menu options, or whatever. All right. So the only place to change the master page is inside of the Site Master file. All right. But once you run the file, so if I go back and run this cart thing, again, notice it's all grayed out. But if I go run it, it's all going to show and it won't look grayed out. All right. All right. Here's where it gets, for lack of better words, a little bit different. Because the author says here how to customize content pages. And let's look at where you might want to customize content pages. All right. So if you run this up here, okay, you might want it to say Halloween Superstore for the little goblin and all of us, but you might want it to say after that homepage. Okay? And if you click cart, you might want it to look like this and say cart page. You get what I'm talking about? And there's different ways that you can do that. Okay? And the author mentions at least some of them in here. Okay? And that's the customization. So he says default content is a good way to handle scenarios. All right. Well, the other way that he does this in here, and I'm getting off a little bit, but I just want you to see this, is down at the bottom. You may or may not have noticed this when I ran it. Okay, like I said, you might not have noticed this, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to run it based off of the order page. See what it says down at the bottom? That's a customized footer that's been added. That footer has been added to the Site Master page. But what the author says is, okay, when you're on the cart page, we want to suck you in. We want to let you know it's getting really close to Halloween. But when you're on the cart page, you really don't need it. So they suppress that showing right there. See what I'm saying? All right. And you've got control. This hasn't been done yet, but we left that in. This hasn't been done yet, but we left that in. So you've got control over what you want to show, even if you make something public, as they talk about right here. All right. And there's different ways that you can do that. So you can override and accept default content by just doing nothing, or you can come in and add code to say, I don't want that content. All right. And that's what they're showing you in these pages here. Okay. So that's that label, the number of days till Halloween. Now, does this make sense? That label that has the number of days until Halloween, there's going to have to be code associated with that. Does that make sense to everybody? So tomorrow it says 37 days instead of 38, and they'll show you that in just a couple minutes. All right, and the way they change it is when it's October 30th, that changes to say tomorrow is Halloween, exclamation point. And then on October 31st, it changes to say today is Halloween, exclamation point. All right, then come November 1st, it says only 364 days until Halloween. Unless it's a leap year. So you get the idea. All right. So again, it says if you want to accept it, just click the smart tag of the content control and choose default. What does that mean? Again, remember, all right, that when we're working, when we're working with this stuff, and we come in and we're looking at all of it, all right, even these placeholders, everything that's in here, see where it says form placeholder? It has a smart tag. All right, so all the stuff that's in here has smart tags. And as it says, if you want to override it, add content to it for the related placeholder. If you've already accepted the default, click the smart tag and tell it you want to create custom content. All right. The other thing that you can do here when they talk about starting here on page 308 is how to expose public properties. This is more the first thing I mentioned. So if you want, you can set a public property, and they show it right here. So they set this public property right here, and what that public property is going to do by default is it's going to show whatever you put into that tag, that'll be the default page. So that'll be the default page, all right, for anything that's in that header area as far as the title. But if you want to change it, you can say this.master.whatever, and you can change it. But you have to change it in code. All right? And we're going to start getting into this in a week or maybe a little more, but probably around a week in the PHP class. We're going to start creating a site, and what you'll want is you'll want it set up so that you'll have a default title for your site. And then if you go from page to page, all right, you can change the title if you want to. Or if you don't want to, you can just keep the default title. That's what they're talking about doing right here. All right, then they bring it back and they talk about how you do this stuff for the shopping code application. And that's pretty much the rest of the chapter here. So let's take a look at this. All right, so what the author has done in this chapter is he's gone back and taken the order.aspx and he's taken the cart.aspx and he's recreated them as being master pages. All right, you can already tell that. We've already talked about it. I've already shown you this, how this changes, etc. All right, but after he does that, what he does is he shows you this, and then he lets you know what you're going to have to do in order to make this happen. All right, so notice what it says here. The figure presents the order page and the cart page. Here the header, the sidebar, the forward links, and the footer are part of the master page. The master page also has two types of default content. First, a default but empty H1 element. It's a default but empty, so you can, if you want to, set the title for each page that you're working on. All right, so as you iterate from page to page. As it says, because the master page exposes this text property, it can be changed from inside the content pages. Think about what that means. What they're saying is that you can take stuff that's in a master page, which basically means that it's untouchable by anything except site.master. But if you decide to, you can take one or more things that you put in there and make it public, which means it can be changed from the inner or content pages. You should do that, you should only do that with a very, very valid reason. All right. As it says, second, the master page provides content for the footer. It's the label with a number of days till Halloween. As it says, it's displayed in the order page, but it's overridden in the cart page by putting in absolutely nothing. That's what I showed you. There's 156 days. There's nothing. All right. As far as the Aspx code, well, what's changed? Well, take a look. This is on page 313 in your book. All right. Well, what do we have here? All right. First of all, notice they have here client ID mode is static. And we jump back. What that says is the client ID is the same as the server control ID. This can cause ID conflicts, such as when there are several instances of the same user control on the page. There aren't. All right. Again, it's because he did a lot of copying and stuff to get this to work. So when you look up here, here's our title, Chapter 9 Shopping Cart. Here's our placeholder, and right now there's basically nothing in there. Right. Here's the other stuff, and notice what's in here. There's our footer. So there's our content placeholder. And again, number of days until Halloween. As it says, that can be overridden if we want it to be overridden. You're going to see it overridden in just a minute. All right. Not a lot of code in this. So this is what allows you to go in and set the title to whatever you want to set it to because it made that particular thing public. All right. And this is what's coming in, and it says, again, if there's 0 days until Halloween, and what are you doing? All right. What you're doing is you're getting the date, and you're figuring out the date. All right. And when you do that, if you figure out that the date is today's date, that means that there's 0 days. So you say Happy Halloween, October 30th. Tomorrow is Halloween. Otherwise, you want to put how many of those days there are. All right. So it's kind of quirky, kind of goofy what they do, but it works. And again, most events for the content page are raised before the events for the master page. So most child events happen before the parent events happen. In the same way, it says events for a content page's controls are raised before the master page's controls. So the child does its thing. Now, when you think about it, you say, well, big deal. It is a big deal because when you think about it, that's kind of the opposite of what we talked about in Java, where you have to call super first. All right? So it's kind of the opposite of the way that this is actually working right here. So, as it says, content pages have their own page load completed event that's raised after the page load events for the content and master pages have been fired. All right? The master page, again, exposes that public property for that H1 element, so if we want to, we're able to set the heading for each page if we want to do so. All right? Then they go through the same thing for the order page on pages 314 through 318. And the author says here, as you can see, this code contains two content controls. The first has a link element that identifies the external site used to format the site. When the order page is displayed, the styles will be combined with styles in an external style sheet. The second has the main content for the page. So all I'm telling you is I'm going to strongly recommend before you do the next assignment, you at least look at this code. All right. What I've done, I haven't put it out there yet, but last week on Tuesday and Thursday, I put out all the code that was in the chapters 6, 7, and 8 folders. Now I've got the ones for 9, 10, and 11. I'm going to throw those out there too. Make it a little easier for you to get to what you want to get to. All right. So again, there is a content placeholder, and you'll notice it starts right here, and it ends right down there. So that's the stuff that you want basically to go into your body. The other one, all it has in the other content placeholder is a link to the style sheet. As far as the ASP.NET code for this, as it says, unlike the order page, this page contains all three content controls because it has overridden the default content for the footer. So it's got its own content, and it's overwriting the one for the footer because, again, for the cart page, we don't want that footer to show. And that's what they're saying right here. So the content control, we overwrite it, we put nothing in it, which means that we're overriding the normal footer that shows the number of days till Halloween with nothing. And that's exactly what they're doing. All right, it says, unlike the order page, this page does add content to the title attribute. This means that the content of the title attribute, rather than the master page's title, is displayed in the browser for the page. All right. Again, what the author is saying is the stuff that's in gray here is what's changed. The stuff that's not gray is the same stuff that we basically have been doing all along here. Okay? So again, not a lot of code. They've overridden the footer, but since there's no code there, that just means don't show anything for the footer, which is exactly what happens. And that's it for this chapter. So again, because I went through it kind of quickly, that client mode ID attribute, as it says, of a master page or a control determines how the client IDs are going to be automatically generated. It says this setting is important when the IDs are used by selectors in CSS for the page. All right, so you might want to go back, and that was near the beginning of the chapter on page pages 300 and 301. All right. And again, last time, if we go through here, I'm going to remove what we don't need, so I don't need that default page anymore. I just put it in there to show you what it looked like. I don't need that default page, okay, so I can remove that one. I can go back to my order page, run the application. You'll notice that really to the naked eye pretty much, other than the menu options that we have over here, it looks just the same as it did before. And it still works. If we click add to cart, we need a quantity. All right, same kind of thing as before. We can go to the cart here, all right, or we can go to the cart over here. Okay, so we're just giving the user and some more options. And rather than adding 2 more buttons, all right, we're going to eventually have a services page and eventually have an about page. All right, and again, you'll notice that it doesn't look all that different here. If we go to the cart page, all right, 1, and we add it to the cart, all right, now we put this in there. That's the thing that they overrode, to put that in there. Your shopping cart, where there was none on the other one, that's the H1 tag that they put in there. All right, so this right here, all the stuff you see here, and all the stuff that you see right there, all that stuff, all right, that's what's in the site.master. All right, and just to show you, I mean, this I'm sure you get it, or at least I think you all get it, but just to show you that if I come back now, come back into here, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to go into site.master, all right, and the master that's right here, I'm going to go into source mode. There's my hyperlinks, right? So I'm going to put another one in there that says, I don't know, I'm just going to call it Halloween. I want to actually get rid of it right away in a second anyway, but there's Halloween, all right, and this says Halloween. All right, now when I come back in and I run this again, it's going to make me save, but we'll find. Yep, there it is. It's not going to go anywhere because I didn't tell it to go anywhere, but you'll notice it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. That's how easy it is to add things. So all the master page is it's a way of adding additional content, right? Okay, but it's additional content that normally by default you want to appear on every page. Doesn't have to. You already saw that with this. That's here for every page except the cart page. All right. Does the concept make sense to people? Any questions on that? All right. So I'm just going to stop the run. It's 10:40. Let's take 15, and we'll come back at 10:55, and we'll go over chapter 10, which again is on skins.